Harry Lehotsky is one of those people you think you know because he was in the news so much and he was such a part of Winnipeg. But reading this new book by Paul Boga, The Urban Saint, I can't believe how much I didn't know about Harry, and I can't believe what an incredible... He is probably one of the bravest, most loving people that has ever lived, and we were so fortunate that he chose to live in Winnipeg. Paul, reading this book, every single page has some revelation about Harry and about the life here in Winnipeg. How did you gather all this information?
Well, the first part was sitting down with his wife Virginia and his boys Matthew, Brandon, and Jared and getting the first-hand accounts of what it was like to live with their husband and dad. So that was really cool. The second part was walking right down here to the West End, talking to people right on the streets, going up to houses, talking to people saying, what do you remember about Harry Lehotsky? And coming into contact with people who were either abused themselves or who were drug dealers and whom Harry changed, and they themselves became forces for change here in the city.
And everyone who knows Harry or knew of him knew that he wasn't afraid of dealing with drug dealers and prostitutes. But until you actually read this book and you read about drug dealers coming up and saying, you're dead if you don't get out of our business, doesn't blink an eye. Yeah. Like, this is so gritty and so real, and it was here in Winnipeg. The fact that Harry was never afraid is one of the biggest testaments to his faith and his love.
Sure, he was fearless. There's no doubt about that. And drug dealers would come up to him right at the street corners and say, we're going to kill you if you don't stop what you're doing. Yeah. And he said, this is what I'm doing. This is what my mission is, and tough luck for you, but I'm not backing down from it. And he even someone tried to knife him one time, and he goes, well, you do what you have to do, but this is what I'm doing, and that's the end of it. So there's a real compassion for people, a real love for people that came through and made him fearless.
And I love the fact that you really get the sense from this book, you understand that for Harry, every single person is a person. Poverty isn't an issue. The West End it's a neighborhood with real people, and everyone needs an individual solution. And Harry tried to bring out the best in people on an individual level.
That's so true, Joanne. See, one of the big things that Harry said was that the bureaucracy in Winnipeg, what it was doing was applying a cookie-cutter approach to solving all of poverty. But Harry said, look, you got to care for people individually. For example, you look at the drug addict who's living, say, on Langside, who's getting his money every month. That guy getting a check at the end of the month is not helping him. That is not welfare. It's just a system for getting money. You're not actually helping the guy. So you got to get personally involved with people. Where's that guy going to go Saturday and Sunday when the welfare office closed down? Where's he going to go in the middle of the night when he's really hurting and looking for drugs? Who's he going to turn to? So Harry saw we have to have personal relationships with people, and that's what made him so endearing to people. People wondered, why do people love him so much? It's because it wasn't about him. It was about everybody else, and we still admire that very much today. We look at a guy and think, wow, this guy loved others more than he cared about himself, and that draws a lot of admiration.
Which is interesting to have a book out about Harry, because he probably would be the last person who would actually want this book. During the summer, and I was fortunate enough to meet his wife they're building a playground, a very beautiful outside of school down here in this neighborhood, and we were at the sod turning, and she said, you know, Harry doesn't want his names on buildings and that, but for the people that Harry left behind, it is important because it means that his legacy will continue. And the legacy, again, is so individual, because really what Harry did and what comes through in this book is that he challenges the bureaucracy, but he also challenges you on an individual level to look people in the eye and to see people as people and to not see them as issues or problems.
Yeah, if you look at Harry's legacy, what does he leave after he's gone now? And all the great programs, Lazarus Housing, Nehemiah Housing, all these great programs, but in the end, what he leaves is an attitude that says, do you care about others more than you care about yourself? And as long as you look at it at a situation as just being poverty, or it's welfare, or it's that people group, we're never going to make progress here in this city. And you or I may not be able to change the entire West End or the entire city, but am I being responsible to the people in my life? Am I caring for someone who's hooked on drugs, or a friend of mine who's got depression? Am I there to help and walk step by step with them? That's what Harry was about. So, you know, let's not be afraid and say, wow, you know, I couldn't sign up to drug dealers. Okay, but can you care for someone that is within your sphere of influence? And that's the Harry Lehotsky attitude that we're hoping that this book will catch fire with.
And that's why I think this book is so important. If you think that you know Harry, read this this book. If you're new to Winnipeg and you've never heard Harry's name, read this book, because this isn't a book that you can just read and then go, oh, I know a little bit of Winnipeg's history and I've just learned about a really amazing man. It will inspire you, and that I think is why Harry would actually appreciate this book.
Sure, I mean, there's the things that we knew that he did.
Yeah.
He took on drug dealers, he confronted bureaucracy, he did all these things. But who was the guy when he wasn't out there in the limelight doing things? What was going on inside Harry's heart and mind when he was at home, when he was going through tough days? You know, we kind of sometimes think he was the big Superman, right? Nothing could go wrong with him. But Harry faced some tough times, and you and I go through tough times. So we're hoping that this book gives people a better understanding of who Harry was and say, you know, this guy went through tough times too. What can I learn about how he approached problems in his life, and can that help me in my life?
And I think it is easy for people to say, well, he is a saint. It was easy for him to do it. But you start the book with him in New York City, almost dead from a drug overdose. So, I mean, Harry knows of what he speaks.
Oh, and that's so key, because Harry was with some friends. He was taking drugs, and he overdosed on drugs in a car in New York as a teenager. And his friends, instead of helping him, they booted him out of the car, left him right on the side of the curb in the rain on the way to death. The cop came by, picked him up, brought him to the hospital. Harry came to and said, God, whatever you want, I'm going to do it. I'm done with my life. I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. And that's really key for Harry, a key moment in Harry's life, because he could be able to relate to people on the street. When somebody who was a drug addict, it wasn't like, oh, that drug addict was like, hey, that used to be me. That used to be me hooked on drugs. And he also recognized that sometimes other people abuse others. You know, he shouldn't have taken drugs, but also his friends shouldn't have left him on the street. So he realizes that there's sometimes people who do things to others and they can't get out of the situation themselves. So there was a real empathy. So even a dark moment like that got turned around to be a real force for good in his life.
How did writing this book change the way you think about Winnipeg, change the way you think about your own life?
The biggest thing that Harry Lehotsky did for me is challenge me to ask the question, what's more important in my life? Am I really concerned about somebody else's well-being, or am I still trying to push something that I want to do? And Harry really opened my eyes, because I'm trying to think, what did Harry ever do for himself? What did he do for his own name? What did he do? Nothing. He never, ever did it. He was there for everybody all the time. I look at that and think, man, like, this is what we need in this city. You know, he was famous not because he took on drug dealers, but because he cared to others, even to his own hurt. I mean, he got job offers at other places that would pay him way more money, get him out all from these death threats, but he never took it, because he was called, he knew what he was doing, he was passionate about that. And that only comes with really coming to the end of yourself. He was selfless. I think that defines Harry the best.
And that comes through on every page here. And literally, you can open up this book on any page and you will find a riveting story about Harry, about the people in this neighborhood, about how much Harry loved them, and stories that are like, I cannot believe how fearless he was. This is an absolute must read. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you very much, Joanne. All the best to you.